Hello, guys. Good to have you back this week. Welcome back to this week's episode of UDAA Lego series, the Know Your Right series. So, this week we'll be talking about the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy. Let's just have a recap of what we had last week. Last week we talked about the fundamental human rights. One thing I did not mention is that these rights are called civil and political rights. And remember, I said they are enforceable, that means you can sue to protect it and you can sue to enforce it. They are inherent, they belong to you, you cannot, by virtue of being human, they are yours. They are inalienable, means that you cannot trade it, you cannot take it away from you, you cannot transfer it, and nobody can take it away from you. So this week, back to today's episode, the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy. These are rights also. These are also rights. So what this means is they are economic, social, and cultural rights. So they are also rights. Remember in the last episode we defined rights, but these are not fundamental human rights. The full realization of civil and political rights, which is the full realization of our fundamental human rights, without the enjoyment of these rights is difficult, if not impossible. So without this this cultural, economic, and social rights, it is difficult to enjoy the fundamental human rights. Examples of these rights are the right to education, health care, good road, shelter, food. You know that normally, human rights are inherent in us. So whether you're rich or poor, you must have these rights, and they are enforceable. And these rights must be given to you by the government, by individuals all around you. They must respect it, and you can enforce it. But these other rights that are social, economic, and cultural rights are not enforceable. You cannot enforce them because they are very important rights. This rights is what makes the fundamental human rights meaningful. It's what makes it make sense. For example, you have the right to life. What is the right to life? Just tell me. When you don't have food to eat, you don't have a roof above your head, you cannot enjoy that life, you don't have education, tell me, would your life be meaningful? So this rights I'm talking about today gives meaning to the fundamental human rights. A charter of rights is meaningless, like I said. No matter what the rights are, they are fundamental human rights. They are meaningless if it is impossible for people to enjoy such rights. So if you don't have food to eat, tell me, how long will you stay alive? If you don't have good health, it will be impossible to be alive. If you don't, so what does guarantee of rights means to the people who can barely afford the necessities of life, talk less of being able to afford the cost of enforcing those rights? Okay, so we talked about human rights and we said they're enforceable, but how meaningful is it if the person that cannot even afford to eat food, what money would the person have to enforce this as rights? And sometimes this is what we face in our country, Nigeria, and which is why it is sometimes meaningless that these rights are not enforceable. These rights are contained in Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution, and they are not enforceable, but they are there just on paper, just written, more like political wishes, just the way people come to campaign strategies people come to campaign and say, we'll give you roads, we'll give you this free education, and when you vote them in, you don't see them. It's likened to these rights being enshrined in the constitution, but you cannot enforce it. So you cannot enforce the government to give you good road. You cannot sue them for it if they don't give you. You cannot sue them if they don't give you good education. And which is why you see people, you see that our government schools, I went to a government school and I got a good standard of education. But these days, if you don't even have money, you can't send your child to a good school. If you send your child to a government school, they lack that standard they used to have during our times. And it's disheartening. You can't even sue the government for it. So you have to be enforced to get your quality education privately. Even water, imagine water. It is so difficult to get water, even the government water. You have to get your own independent water, like borehole. And it's very cheap to have a borehole, but the government will not provide it. Even the water corporation will not even give us a simple amenity as water. What about power? You don't have power. Even when you want to be economical, you want to try to grow the economy, start your own business, you may not have power to sustain that business. You have to start wasting money on getting your own independent power plant and all of that. But still, you can't enforce. These are your rights. They are rights in itself, but they're unenforceable. So what rules are the human rights if you cannot enjoy your human rights? There's right to liberty, there's right to freedom of expression, but then they can ban Twitter because you can still express yourself without Twitter. You can speak and your voice will be heard. They can stop the use of internet. These are basic amenities that makes life enjoyable, and you cannot enforce this because it is not enforceable. It is the responsibility of the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature to conform, to observe, and to apply these objectives. And like I said, it is not enforceable. So do we, all of us that voted representatives into power, I would just like to say, do we know that these rights are supposed to be enforced by our legislatures, judiciary, and executives? Do we know those representing us in our constituency? Do we go to them and try to tell them the things we need in our community and checkmate them to ensure that they do it, so that tomorrow when they come for our votes, we know who to vote, we know who to put in power? We need to know these things. It is important for us to know these things, because these rights, we can only enforce them this way, by putting the right people in power to do them for us. I had a free education in Lagos, and I'm proud about it. I went to government school and it was free education. Everybody deserves free education. They are enshrined in Chapter 2, as earlier said, of the 1999 Constitution. And they include the fundamental principles of democratic government, the political objectives, economic objectives, social objectives. All of this we will explain in our next lecture series, but I just want to itemize them and introduce them. The educational objectives, foreign policy objectives, environmental objectives, preservation of Nigerian culture, freedom of press to uphold these objectives, national ethics, duties of citizens. So remember, the last part of this is the duties of citizens. So we have duties also, in as much as the government that we put in power, and I also want to state this, we are the one that put them in power, give them Nigeria to hold for us as trusts. So they are holding the government is holding Nigeria as a trust for us, and they're supposed to be accountable to us. They're supposed to make this country, because all of us can't govern ourselves at the same time. All of us can't be in government at the same time, but all of us should be in government, not by holding power, but by being active in government, by learning to be part of the politics going on in our country, by contributing at the local level, from the chancellor, the chairman. Do you know who the chairman of your local government is? Do you know the things he's supposed to do as a chairman? Do you go to him? Do you write to him? Do you talk to him? You need to know all of this, so that when you are putting somebody in power, you know what you are giving them to do. You don't know. You think chancellor is a little position, but it means a lot if you truly know what they are supposed to do. Then you can hold them accountable. Then you can enforce this right. Then you can, even if you cannot enforce it, then you can ensure that you take steps that they are achieved, they are achievable for the goods of the entire society. So to end this session, I would like to remind us that human rights are inherent rights to be enjoyed by all human. Remember that, of all global village, are not gifts to be withdrawn, withheld, or granted at someone's whim or will. Why these social objectives are actually rights that makes this human right enjoyable, that gives it meaning, that makes it, when I say I am alive, I am me, and I mean I am alive. Good health care. You cannot go to the hospital and you cannot pay your bills. You deserve good health care, and it doesn't cost so much to have good hospitals in every local government, in every communities, in every constituencies. Good road. You have the freedom to go to everywhere you want to go to, but do you have the road? Can you move from one place to another? So it is not enough to say we are not stopping you from moving. Yes, you have the freedom to move, and we won't stop you. But you did not aid me. You have to give me those facilities that will make sure my movement, I can move, in fact, to make sure I can move. Automobile road. Good access to good education. So remember this, all this is in our hands. So we have to come together and be responsible. It's just like giving your home to a house manager to manage your home. That doesn't mean you go out in the morning and come back and you won't even know what is happening in your home. The home manager has to give account of what happened that day, what the children ate, if they ate, if any of them fell ill, because it is your responsibility. The same way the governance of our nation is all of our responsibilities. We need to show active participation in it. Thank you. So next week we'll be talking about the first part of these principles of state policy. We shall be talking about the first part. So we're going to take it one after the other to the end, and then we'll go to the fundamental human rights. I'll start from the beginning. I'll talk about it one after the other to the end. So don't miss next week's episode. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be intriguing, and it's going to entail some of the things I think you don't know. It's going to enlighten you more. So please stay tuned. Follow. Don't forget to follow our channel. Don't forget to put on your notification. Thank you. Bye bye.